Three, two, one, go.
And what is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Wild Rift Open, brought to you by FSL, supported by Intel and Yahoo. My name is Jay. Joining me right here is Gaminism, or aka Grandon. My man. It's my first time casting review, so extremely excited how this is going to actually turn out.
Yeah, it's been crazy, right?
Yeah,
the
man.
fact is, I've seen you around for so long. It's our first chance to cast together, and what better stage to do it than the FSL? It's been a long time. I think it's been like 2 years since the last time I've got a chance to work with them, and that was when we were able to do live events, and they had this amazing series for like League of Legends, and I think it was an AOV at the time. And yeah, I mean, now we're moving into Wild Rift, a game that I can very much enjoy.
Yes, and you know what? Like, we were actually talking about this earlier just now before we actually went live. I just realized that, oh my goodness, I've never casted for a LAN event because I joined casting when COVID struck, so we're forced to be in our small little box, so I cannot really put my hand over, and I wouldn't be able to send a hand over to Grandon's side of the webcam. But enough of us rambling about our experience of casting. Today we'll be watching the playoffs. This is day number one. The group stage has been going in the background for the past 2 days, so now we're moving into the playoffs, where it will be a single elimination best of 3. Coming up next will be NSL going up against Space Gamer KALLYX.
I think it's really interesting because NSL has had such a wealth of experience playing in Wild Rift and even in League of Legends, and being able to transfer all that knowledge into the game that they're playing now is just such a strong advantage point. So going into the playoffs, I think they are quite a heavy favorite, but we still have a lot to kind of expect to see from them for them to really prove themselves moving forward.
Yes, and that's right. You know what? You mentioned about NSL having like the prior experience. They have the veterancy card right here as well, right? In fact, if I'm not mistaken, NSL are basically they are the leading team in their respective groups, whereas Space Gamer KALLYX is actually going in 4-4, but they are not the leading one. In fact, it was Greensky Ares that is leading in their group. But enough of them. Enough about the group stages. I think what we need to focus about is right now as they're going into the playoffs. What are the kind of champions that we will be looking out for? It's a lot of things on the table, right? Because you're seeing like Morgana being picked up very frequently recently because so much utility in this one little champion, like the Dark Binding, the just CC to stall people. There's AoE damage, there's the Black Shield that just makes you immune to the CCs, and in fact a game-changing ultimate. So I'm looking towards Morgana being picked up in our Wild Rift Open day number one.
I really like the idea that you've kind of proposed with the Morgana, because it's symptomatic of a bigger issue as a whole, right? Because Morgana is so strong as a pick because of the demand and the necessity to ban away other picks on the Baron lane side of the map. So when you get rid of things like Percent, like the Jace, even to some extent, maybe even like Renekton and Riven, you then have to leave open inherently some of the other pickups, which are going to be things like the Morgana, which, like you mentioned, has a lot of wave clear, a lot of potential to clear out waves. That being said, we also see a lot of focus around some hyper carry, hyper scaling marksmen, because only those, I think, right now are able to keep up with the kind of tempo that we're seeing from a couple of these like mage style support bot laners. And so overall, Morgana's a big one, Ziggs is a big one. It's interesting to see that they have actually been kind of relegated into the not perma-ban category and into the first pick space, which is nice to see because it kind of means that the meta is moving around, shifting around a little bit.
I love it when people are actually innovating with the meta. But with that said, let's hop into the draft, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a look at what kind of meta or gameplay style they'll be bringing onto the table. First off, in the ban, it is going to be Olaf, the Morgana that we were talking about. Basically, I've been fangirling about earlier just now. The Fiora, the Jax, the Jace, the Sets. Meta bans being banned away. Picks going in for the side of NSL. It is going to be the Camille and Space Gamer KALLYX responding with the Diana and the Gragas.
So you get the Camille really early on because you want to have that flexibility, but then you go straight for the Renekton, and so you say like, I don't need any flexibility. I can play for any matchup that you want to bring my way. I do really like the Renekton here because there are not that many picks that are really left available that can deal with the Renekton very well. Darius, Garen are generally pretty decent matchups, but the Renekton is still quite favored here, especially with the Camille. It's very easy to dive your opponent. The Gragas has one good option, which is that ultimate, the explosive cast, which is going to give him some space. apart from that, it's not very easy to get away from these dives.
Yeah, truly agree. It feels like NSL will be having a very strong Baron lane on the top side. Could look into ganking all the way out of the top side, and that brings up to another point. Whereas the Ziggs getting picked up by the side of NSL, like I said, NSL feels like they don't really need this flexible picks anymore. But this Ziggs could definitely go into the dragon lane, could go into the mid lane as well. So there are a bit of flexibility from their point of view. But Space Gamer KALLYX, is that a Senna I see?
Yeah, Senna does really well right now. It's been able to get a lot of scaling, especially when you're able to play with like low or high economy supports where they kind of want a little bit more gold. You know, you're able to play a little bit more passively. That being said, Daryl likes to drop all these numbers. Like it takes 18 minutes to get to your strongest scaling point, ideally. Personally, for me, I don't look at it that way. I think the utility for Senna comes in a lot of different ways, especially with that global ultimate. You know, you're able to cover so much distance and so much space. It really helps your team play against a lot of the big guys, a lot of the big engagers that might come through. And as we look through the second ban phase, right, you see the Darius, the Galio getting banned out. So some of the matchups that might be a little bit difficult for the Renekton, like we mentioned, that's three. We are seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Baron lane bans so far, right? 5 Baron lane bans. Just so it opens up the space for the Renekton to have a strong matchup, it shows the power and importance of having a good Baron leader.
Yeah, and it feels like, it feels like NSL should be securing the first few Rift Heralds because of their strong ability to basically control the Baron lane, and now Jarvan getting tossed into that mix, basically almost eliminating most of the Baron laners. The only Baron laners I could think of that will fight against a Renekton to hold their ground, I would say it's like a Garen, but no, they're gonna lock in the Riven instead.
So Riven has an okay matchup, but this is a little bit risky.
Yeah.
I might actually prefer Gragas top and Riven in the jungle because I think Riven has a lot better scaling. It has better mobility, especially since it's up against like Camille. You want to have that. But I think either way could work. It's ultimately up to their preference and their individual ability. But that being said, the Riven's going to require a little bit more assistance, and that kind of makes things a little bit more one-dimensional for this team. Braum being picked up for NSL, I do think that this could... Akshan? Okay, interesting one.
Yeah, but okay, Akshan being picked up here. Can you what do you mean by interesting? Like, do tell us more about why is it very interesting for Akshan being picked up by the side of NSL?
Yeah, I think that with the Akshan, you know, it doesn't really have that same kind of like power that a lot of other champions might generally have. It doesn't have that hot scaling. It does have a lot of that cheese factor. You're able to kind of dive around, fly around with like the Avenger rank and stuff like that, and really do like dish out some damage. You have some decent wave clear, which is a bit of a problem for the NSL side. But looking at how things are going for them right now, I felt that maybe they could have gone for something that would have a little bit more utility, maybe just a little simpler to play, execute for. Unless it's Akshan mid, which I'm thinking it should be Akshan mid and then Ziggs Braum bot. I think that's an easier matchup to play for, especially if you're going up against the center Gragas now. Then it would be to play the Akshan on bot side and then Ziggs mid lane. So I think it's probably going to be an Akshan against Diana, so it has like a much better matchup in the mid lane, and then bot lane just plays for a decent.
Yeah, and you mentioned about a low econ support, and you mentioned about the Senna will look to try to scale all the way up to the 18-minute mark. That's where she'll pop up. I feel like what NSL is trying to do is to use the Ziggs to constantly poke at Senna to try to stall. And I really like the fact that if they really put a Zigg at the bottom at the Dragon lane, that would be great. But I feel like just looking at the draft screen thus far, it's still not very clear which. Is it either going to be Ziggs or Akshan will be walking down to that mid lane? But it feels like, NSL, they do have a very strong early game, and we've seen, early game snowball mechanism. Once they start securing the Rift Heralds, they start to punch down these tower objectives and thus getting more lead. And it's going to be very hard for Space Gamer KALLYX, especially when they're looking to scale all the way to the late game with the Senna and even perhaps with the Diana and the Riven as well. All right,
as we move into round 1, NSL and SG KALLYX gonna enjoy themselves. And you know what? If we were confused about where the Ziggs was gonna go, I can feel the same way about SG KALLYX. Surely, we're perhaps we're wondering themselves. I think things might kind of play out. Ziggs is gonna go to the bot side. Quite like that. I think that's a decent matchup, and I think the Akshan Diana matchup is a really good one for the Akshan.
Yep, of course, with the Archon, having the range advantage against this Diana, the Diana will be playing it a little bit safer right now, using the first skill to try to pick up the last hit, and that's not going to be good because Diana is mana dependent, especially in the earlier parts of the game. So hopefully Rang Zong will be trying to gank towards the mid part to get kind of land support so that this Archon doesn't really have enough lead. But like I said, NSL looking to play at the top side, use the Camille to gank it constantly to get the Rift Heralds. But at the bottom side, though, I think NS17 just needs to hold down the fort, just constantly toss down the bombs, and it's going to be very annoying for Polykaton to basically just hold on to anything.
The first thing that's kind of caught my eye as we kind of start the game off are the kind of item buys coming through, especially from the bombs. So NS11, right, deciding to go for the boot start, generally kind of accepted as a support starting item. So you're going to be able to build towards stuff like your Locket early on, which is going to be really important for the Dragon fights with Rift Herald fights. What's interesting is SG KALLYX with Gambling has decided to go for the Amplifying Tome instead. So it's a component that gets them closer towards the damage item. I'm thinking it might be something like the Roa, so you have some decent scaling that's going to do well while you're relatively cheap, right? But it's interesting that that's going to be the case because this takes away from some of the team fighting power they might have, and that kind of calls out to me that SG KALLYX is going to look for some small dueling skirmishes, but they're not necessarily going to look for some big strong.
Yeah, and I feel like the amplifying tone for the side of Gamblings, right? You mentioned that it may be a little bit awkward when it comes to the team fighting part. I feel like they really need some form of response. You can't just let Ziggs to constantly land the bombs on top of Senna. You need to try to respond. So that's why the Gragas builds in a little bit more in terms of the damage. That should suffice, however. But looking at the wave clear right now, SG KALLYX is just resetting the wave as NSL top side right there. Riven just sneaking in, forced to jump over to the wall. But NS13, he has a hook shot. She has the hook shot, but NSL still okay holding on to all these 3 lanes.
And one of the first things that's happened in this game is NSL got both Scuttlecrabs, and it's still pretty good value to get both, right? So you get that information, and so for SG KALLYX, I think there was some requirements to go in a little bit aggressive to start getting some information on where the enemy jungler was, because they just moved up too much in that space. Ransong doing something in a similar branch, so the Riven getting control of the top side, and then the Sinjao getting control towards the bottom side. You try and get some information, you try and trade out for a little bit, and that means that especially with the Camille, they need to start looking to clear out their own camps because they're going to start losing HP otherwise. They're looking for a own top side.
Yep, S19 will be jumping all the way in. In fact, popping the Dominus. NS10 will be able to walk all out, but the person that's not going to be able to walk out is that Riven with a 2-man gang on the top side.
Really good moves from NSL to go over and grab that kill, especially because they still have a little bit of time before the objective spawn. And now they get to rotate back over. SG KALLYX were the ones to start moving to the mid lane first. So they get a little bit of priority there, but you just can't push it to Ziggs, man. He's just too good at his job. So this is going to afford a lot of space for NSL, I think. And I think while this SG KALLYX should get the pick of the litter for what they want to try and go for, it looks like it's going to be a Dragon for Rift Herald.
Yeah, NSL focusing onto the Dragon instead. We thought that they could actually go for the Rift Herald instead, but in fact, they prioritize on top of the Ocean Drake instead. SG KALLYX will be trading with their own Rift Herald. He's gonna be Ghost just poking in, but no commitment coming out from both sides. Both sides just gonna take each other's objectives and then just walk back to lane.
And if you think about a little bit of why one team might want to go for a certain objective over the other, with NSL side, it's pretty straightforward, right? You have to get stuff like the 6. You're gonna hold that first because it looks like there's gonna be some action here. Yep,
it's gonna be some action indeed. The Rift Herald is already popped all the way down. We'll be sending his head first right into the turret. Only 52 HP, so low. Polykaton doesn't really have enough damage to take it all the way down, but the damage has been done against NSL. And you're right, KALLYX, they're fighting against a Ziggs that could wave kill very quickly. So prioritizing on top of the Rift Herald is really good response against NSL.
Actually going back in for a fight. Sitting in the brush.
Sitting in the brush as well. In fact, the Senna using the ultimate at the same time, and the Riven rolls down for the second time. NS10 just calling the members of SG KALLYX one after another. Nice route coming out from the side of Senna to try to hold down the fort, but NS19 is just gonna jump all the way in. There's so much mobility from the side of Team NSL, and now they're gonna respond with a takedown on the turret at the top side.
Oh, this is bad. This is really bad. SG KALLYX, they were supposed to get first turret. That was supposed to be the call. That was the reason why he took Rift Herald. And what I was trying to get to before all that action happened was that NSL, you think about why they don't have to go for the Rift Herald, because you have a Ziggs, you have an Akshan, you have an easy way to push down these turrets. You have that Satchel Touch will execute the turrets for you. You don't really need that Rift Herald. You can trade for yourselves. The only thing is that probably SG KALLYX have an easier time getting the first turret. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, NSL have a good chance of just picking up the turrets themselves organically without that. So the Dragon just helps with their scaling. You know, you get some of that Omni Vamp. Helps a little bit more than the Rift Herald would in this early game. And the fact that they now get first turret, top turret did not go down for SG KALLYX. So many things are going right for NSL.
Yeah, and I think SG KALLYX just kind of missed their prime opportunity right there. They were the one who landed down the Rift Herald at the top side against NSL, and you know, it feels like they're supposed to be the one that picks up the first turret gold, and now they lost everything. They need to find a way to try to claw all the way back. They do have a Senna, they do have a Riven, they do have game-changing ultimates from the side of the explosive cask at the same time, so they should looking to scale even harder as compared to NSL. But NSL though, they have started the first part of the game, right? And now it's trying to end the game as quickly as possible so that, you know, the Senna doesn't become this very scary Senna. And now there's the members of both these two teams congregating against this the Scuttlecraft won't be able to do anything as of now. Just gonna, like, you know, say hi a little bit. But I feel like SG KALLYX right now is wasting their time in that particular part of the map. They're not farming because they're just saying hi at NSL.
I think they were trying to get some information and trying to contest for that, especially because the Dragon should be coming up pretty soon here for them. I think with SG KALLYX, you look at the items that they have, going for the Rod of Ages, they're trying to build towards, they're trying to get items that have maximum value for the gold that they have, and they're pretty low economy champions across the board. Maybe Polikaton is a little bit more gold aggressive. But looking at it right now, playing Fasting Senna, you know, you're probably not going to need that much gold anyway. You just really need to be in range of the creeps as they die. They're able to do pretty decently for themselves. You know, it doesn't matter that they're down about 3,000 gold right now because they still have a lot of economy that they can hold on with.
Yeah, as you know, you were talking about that. I was like, Lowe's is like, you know what? I'm just gonna dash in, activate my shield, ignore NS10, and just whack that final turret that almost got earlier just now, just to, you know, finish the job. It's like the last piece of the meat on top of a plate, and no one wants to pick it up. And the KALLYX is like, you know, I'm just gonna use the chopstick and just go straight for it and pick it up and eat it for myself.
I mean, you can't argue with that. You know, you just want to pick it up. You gotta take it at some point. And they actually rotate over. They're playing deep into the Dragon fight. This could be really bad for either team.
Yes, NS10 already activated the Dominus at the same time. Goes also jumping all the way in, Senna popping off the ultimate. And in fact, Ultimatum also popped off by the side of NS13. Won't be able to do anything as of yet. NS10 still leading the charge, but these stun coming out, these roots coming out from Polikaton. It's actually a little bit difficult for NSL to hold on. It's always constantly slow down the momentum and pacing of NSL as SG KALLYX just denied the Dragon away, resetting for NSL now. Looking a little bit low though. They might actually want to go all the way in, but no, NS10 looking a little bit low. Goes jumping all the way in, will be able to stab him all the way down. Now he's the next person on the target. NX19 still looking a bit healthy as well, and NX13 just walks in, picks up the kill on top of Logs, giving the double kill over to NSL.
And somehow SG KALLYX will pull back with 2 kills. It's a moral victory for them, I think. Even though they might not have won that team fight in that Dragon. And it's only going to be the Cloud Trick. So SG KALLYX, I think, still have one more chance to try and come back in. The problem really is, right, with SG KALLYX composition, you can't allow the enemy team to get into the pit first because they have so much more poke than you do. They have the long range poke of the Ziggs. They're able to build up space. The Brahms are able to zone you out very well. So you really have to be in position early. So when you see things like this happening, when the Rift Herald is being started up, you guys kind of have to give it up. You need to start moving towards your other camps, start picking up some gold elsewhere across the map. You have your jungle camp spawned up. You have the lanes being shoved out. You just have to decide to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree with you that, you know, you saw how difficult it is for SG KALLYX to try to actually walk into that pit right now. Even NSL dropping down the Rift Herald and the mid lane right now, and SG KALLYX desperately tried to defend. You know, SG KALLYX, I think they missed a small little opportunity to try to create some space for themselves in the mid lane, but in fact, they were just like, you know, a little bit confused as how they're gonna path. NSL, they've already secured both the Drake and the Rift Herald in like less than a minute for themselves. NSL leading in terms of all these objectives. SG KALLYX forced to pick up the scraps.
I think it's just the nature of being alive, right? When you're alive, you get more options.
Yeah.
And so NSL, I mean, it's a bit of a difference between. Okay, that's good
Okay.
damage from the Akshan. Can he kill him?
No, I don't think so. The Honeyford will be able to. And then you see Rangjong just flash way across the other side of the wall. I think SG KALLYX, they cannot hold onto the damage of this Akshan that's already scaling. They've got NS11 that could just create so much space just in case if the Akshan actually stands over just a little bit. And you know, we mentioned about this, right? NSL is trying to end this game. They have a lot of tools in their kit to create so much space with the Braum, with even the Hexer Ultimatum at the same time, and also the Ziggs. So SG KALLYX, I think they need to not face NSL head on. They cannot try to pick up all these little fights. They need to try to split up, split push the different lanes all the way down.
I mean, that's not really the. I don't think that's exactly the issue. It's not right to say that SG KALLYX can't take fights against NSL. NSL could definitely lose a fight against SG KALLYX, provided the right circumstances are happening. But let's take a look at what kind of composition NSL has. You know, they have a really good. They have good team fighting composition, but they have a great sieging composition, and they have a lot of poke coming through from the Ziggs. So when NSL get position around the objectives first and SG KALLYX play into them, they have a big problem. They can't get close enough without losing a lot of that HP in the process. So what they need to be good at doing is being in the stronger position to begin with.
Yeah, but it feels like SG KALLYX once again may not be able to find himself in a strong position. Dominance activated at the same time. Nice ultimate coming out from the Diana, but won't be able to phase NSL away. It feels like NSL is just picking up KALLYX one after another, giving them once again a double kill at the same time. Goes jumping in. Here comes a big up from Holland or something. Just picking up that kill at the same time. SG KALLYX is slowly losing members. They're also slowly losing ground at the bottom side. And look at that. Lols, yes, she can be tanky, but no. NSL just takes SG KALLYX apart at the bottom lane.
I think that's the most tragic thing I've ever seen. Gambling flashed in, looked for the damage because he was about to kill somebody else, but she got stunned by the Renekton, and you could just see how sad. I could feel the sadness as she stood there, unable to move. Bleak and dreary. I don't know, some kind of Edgar Allan Poe, perhaps. I feel like that could be the modern Bleak and dreary.
Yeah, you know.
I think we're looking at SG KALLYX right now. The thing that they've been facing off against is that they didn't have control in the mid lane anymore because that turret went down, and so there was so much space for NSL to just walk over. They go down to the bot side, have an easy dive opportunity. That's the power of taking down mid lane power early on, and with the Ziggs, with the Rift Herald, it's so easy to do that.
Yeah, it's so really easy to do that. And once again, SG KALLYX tried to contest for the dragon once again, but it is going to be blue health bar. Still looking very healthy right now. Goes desperately trying to run away, try to dash all the way and try to put down some damage, but that will not be able to find any more damage. Polycaton will also fall as well. The second team wipe within less than a minute from the side of SG KALLYX. NSL leading the charge. They are unfazed, and yes, it's just once again, you know, the Gambling's jumping all the way in, try to do some damage, and then you get a 3 million year stun from the side of NS10, and immediately I could feel like the whole screen turn black and white, you know, with the raindrops and the sad violin being played as well.
The world's smallest violin
being
played. But I have to say, I really like that attempt from SG KALLYX. You know, this is something very impressive for me. A lot of teams struggle with the fact that when you're behind and you have to make a coordinated play, they'll play very passively. They're scared to go for the engage. They're scared to take the fight to the opponents who have the advantage because they just feel like they have to scale, which is true. In this case, I do think they could afford to scale more, but they decide to go for a strong fight together. They get a good moonfall to begin with. Then you go in with the Riven. Unfortunately for them, the Braum is just too tanky at this point. They took down NS11, but at the end of it all, right, the only one to go down at the fight, the Braum just soaked up so much damage, the Unbreakable, the Glacial Fissure, everything blocking the advance from SG KALLYX. I think that was the main deciding factor that kind of cost them that fight, but I really enjoyed the attempt to move in as a team unit.
Yeah, like really mad respect over, even though, you know, NSL does have a lot of tools to try to slow down SG KALLYX. Same could be said over to SG KALLYX as well. I feel like these routes coming out from the center has been very, very annoying to try to slow NSL all the way down. As mentioned, NSL cracking open bottom lane and the mid lane at the same time. Turrets getting destroyed. Riven on the side of the wrong side of the map, trying to force to defend, but it is going to be, you know, Ultimate getting casted all the way out from the base, from the center at the same time, but the Nexus looking very, very weak, and NSL will pick it up without any efforts at all.
You don't have to win the team fight, you just have to take the Nexus. That's all you have to do, and an amazing job from NSL. Close that one out in very good fashion as well, 20 to 4. I mean, kills are not fully representative of what this game kind of looked like.
Yeah.
I think that SG KALLYX had a lot of strong redeeming factors at the end of it all, and I like the optimization that builds that they were trying to go for, the idea they were trying to go for, but a composition like NSL's just does so much better in the things that they want to go for, right? These team fights, these objective pickups, and kind of SG KALLYX just played into them a little bit too much. I think that was the biggest problem that they faced.
Yeah, and you remember NSL, right? They're like basically each of the members of NSL, they could just walk into a area, they could just set it all the way up and then just set up the siege. As long as the Ziggs is there, there's no way that SG KALLYX will be able to just step on in without getting poke damage. And once they constantly get the poke damage, it's a lot easily to win them against them. And you see, like, you know, these early games, the early game fights that basically allow NSL to snowball. This dominance, this crocodile has been just wrecking this Riven constantly, and then become this dominant crocodile, just rampaging all throughout the draft of SG KALLYX. I could never forget that one point where, you know, NSL is just jumping into with like, I think it's around a quarter of health right into the members of SG KALLYX. Yes, I think that's a little bit of suicidal, but he made it, she made it work, and then after that just walk all the way in, allowing his team create so much space for a team, and then just walk all over SG KALLYX. In fact, that dragon could have been going into, I think it was the second dragon, could have been going into SG KALLYX's pocket, but no, NSL secured it for themselves.
I'll tell you what, Jace. NS10 better be putting the work, because they spent 5 bans on the dragon lane, the baron lane, to make sure that the Renekton would have a favorable matchup. And that kind of put KALLYX on that Riven, you know, maybe unwillingly, right? Not able to get the impact that they wanted to be able to find if they were playing something different. So I'm hoping the Renekton puts in work. You invest so much into it, the returns better be pretty good.
Yep, I feel like this could be the return of investment they're looking for, right? You know, a very dominant crocodile on the top lane. After that, just stomping all throughout. They've basically whittled down most of the Baron laners right now. So hopefully, as KALLYX will be able to pick that up, they will notice that, hey, you know, NSL love to play around the Baron laner. So we shall see in game number 2. So speaking about game number 2, we're going to go into a short break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. FSL Wild Rift Open. My name is Jay. Joining me right here is Gamermanism or Grandin. And yes, we just watched. I'm sorry, my tongue. My
just
tongue
say
is a little bit
Grandin,
short.
it's okay.
My tongue is short, right? Grandin. I'm just gonna say Grandin. And of course, we watched a game between NSL and SG KALLYX, as an NSL picking up the first game in the series, but they do. It is gonna be a best of 3, so there's still, well, a couple more chances for SG KALLYX to climb all the way back in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what are you laughing at? It's some kind of inside joke I don't get.
No, the inside joke is like, oh my goodness, I kind of miss the gamerism kind of thing. It's just replayed, like, you know, like stream delay, you know, my brain gets a little bit delayed a little bit.
No worries, you know, we all have that. We all live those days. That's why I've been told to just drop it entirely, but I just can't get rid of it. You know, it's a curse and a blessing. It's followed me my entire life. You know what? I think that when we look at the grand scheme of things so far, first game between NSL and SG KALLYX, SG KALLYX actually had a pretty good showing, and this is against NSL, who was we looked as a strong tournament favorite, who have a lot of powerful and individual players. They played very well as a team as well. You know, Wild Rift being on a small map and everything, it's very apparent when you're not roaming and not being able to hit those timings, because the opponent opponents can punish that very easily. But KALLYX had a very strong understanding. A few things that came to mind were the fact that they were the ones to prioritize the mid lane switch for the Dragon lane to go to the mid lane. Right, you bring Senna, bring Gragas Nest, so you start getting control against the Rift Herald, against the Dragon, whichever you end up picking. They went for the Rift Herald. Unfortunately, that was the start of the end for them because they got the Rift Herald, but they missed the chance by first turret, overstayed their welcome, and NSL gets to return the favor, collapse in on them, and they get first turret in turn by picking up that Baron lane turret out of tier turret. And then a couple of other things that started to happen from there. But again, I felt like KALLYX had really good discipline and awareness to move together as a team to kind of like try and smash open and break the problem, right? So, you have a bunch of different ways. You have a puzzle box, you could try and like finesse it a little bit, try to figure it out. Maybe watch some YouTube videos. The other ways to take a hammer, you smash it open, right? That's what KALLYX strategy is. Bring in the hammer, smash them open with all the ultimates that you have, and hope for the best that it works.
Yeah, and interesting thought process though. Like, we're gonna go into the drafting very, very soon, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we're gonna jump in all the way in right now. Same bans all throughout. It is going to be, Space Gamer KALLYX banning away the Jax, the Camille, the Set, and NSL will be banning away the Olaf, Morgana, and the Fiora. Jay's gonna be snap pick right off the bat from the side of NSL, but look at these picks. They are so quick.
You kind of have to first pick Jace, I think, if the opponent doesn't ban that one away because of how powerful your laning phase is, not to mention the ability to split push. I mean, I could go on and on about why Jace is such a strong pick. There are a number of picks that could still do decently in the matchup. Darius is, interestingly enough, I think one of the ones that still has a bearable matchup against the Jace because if you're able to get close enough in range, especially once you get that early proto belt, you can jump in and try and use the upper hand. Stuff like the Redacted has a very difficult time against Jace. Unfortunately, you have to be a little bit careful about that, and that means a lot of pressure needs to be placed on whoever's piloting the Jace this game. Apart from that, the Garen also being picked up, this could be a Garen top Jace mid kind of situation, and yeah, I think he does really, really well regardless of which lane he goes into.
Yeah, it feels like, NSL picked up, like, in my mind, it feels like 3 Baron laners right off the bat. So much flexibility going in. And now, as you're going into the second phase ban, it is going to be the Nami and the Yasuo getting taken off the board. And from the side of Space Gamer KALLYX, I feel like they're switching up the gears a little bit. I feel like they finally secured something for Lois because Lois is forced onto the Riven duty in game number 1. And in fact, Space Gamer KALLYX has always won against NSL throughout 2021. And in fact, NSL taking a game away just now from Space Gamer KALLYX, I think that is a very good and big momentum boost for them, and hopefully they should be able to go in towards game number 2 with that sort of mindset. But now, feels like NSL focusing down the mid laners, banning away the Yasuo, the Zed at the same time. Space Gamer KALLYX banning away that Orianna.
Yeah, it's interesting that a lot of mid lane focused bans coming through, especially getting rid of options potentially. I'm guessing to get rid of the Zed and Yasuo, they surely must have some kind of strategy they want to try and go for. Just kind of open up a number of options. Nunu was really powerful and popular in the meta a couple of patches ago. I feel like a little bit less these days. Sinjao still being available, but then not going for something that, stuff like the Lee Sin available, not going for stuff like that. The Nunu is interesting because I think this is supposed to help them escalate the fight and get the Galio into it. So like the initial engage and kind of like raise the level of anticipation. And then you just want some disengage, so the response from NSL is the Seraphine Lux duo.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of constant poke, right, with the Seraphine and Lux duo. But I agree. It feels like Space Gamer KALLYX, they could just click on all the ultimates all together, especially the Galio, the Ziggs, and Nunu at the same time. It just feels like an almost instant win. And now with NSL, the Seraphine and Lux to try to slow it all the way down, and now Space Gamer KALLYX doubling down with the Katarina as well. Wow.
The most important thing to take note of is what the intentions are with the Lux and Seraphine pickup, because what KALLYX want to try and get done is they want to run into you, right? They want to jump into you and do damage. That's what the Katarina is for. That's what the Galio is for. With the Seraphine Lux, you have incredibly long range that's going to be able to start building space against them. The problem I think they might face is that the Katarina is going to be difficult to stop while she's in that Death Lotus, so you might have some problems there. But apart from that, I mean, just so much that you can do to slow in that initial engage. The Nunu has a difficult time getting past the binding, and worst comes to worst, you have that on-call, you suddenly wipe and charm the entire enemy team. KALLYX can't really chase you after that, so you get to like disengage, back off, reset, and play out for the fights again in your favor.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the on-call would be very important for the side of NSL to try to push away space game mechanics. Like especially with they're gonna run towards the whole team with their ultimates ready on that trigger finger, right? So I really love what NSL has brought into the game with this. And don't forget, you mentioned about NSL, they've got the Seraphine and the Lux with the long range. Jace as well have such a long range poke, very strong long range poke, just in case if they're running towards you can just use that long range poke, or even change it up a little bit, you can use those gateways to just run away from any team fights.
Minions have spawned.
All right, hopping into game number 2, ladies and gentlemen. NSL in the blue, SG KALLYX with like the wombo combo team with the ultimates as well. NSL going in the long range. Jace will be in the mid lane duty, and Garen sent all the way up to the top to fight against that Darius. Bottom lane though is gonna be a, I don't know, trench warfare.
The range is gonna be pretty egregious. That's 100% for sure. Interesting thing, I think, starting off this one is both junglers gonna start towards the top from the top side, and they're gonna make their way down, I believe. Last game, NSL were able to pick up both Scuttle Crabs. That was a huge bonus for them. I don't think it's gonna be as easy to execute this time around. Runsong is actually going to go from the Raptors over to the red buff. I think this should mean that they want to go for the Krugs as well, so you get that full top side clear. Not to position over, so that might actually change the direction that the junglers go towards, because NS13 then gets to go towards the bottom side earlier, whereas NS10 is she's just gonna try and sustain up against the Darius and hold out, because the Nunu being that towards that top side is actually a pretty big threat. They have a lot of kill threat and kill potential against Garen then.
Yeah, and then even I think NSL knows about this kill threat, right? In fact, having a deep ward for the side of NSL will be able to spot that Nunu is in the area, so NSL, they have to play a bit safe on the Baroning. Whereas for the side of the Jarvan, from the side of NS13, slowly parting towards the bottom side. I feel like NSL should be able to pick up these kills, a 3v2 at the bottom side, but it feels like, SG KALLYX, they know what's going on. Like I said, trench warfare, it's really hard to just rush through the no man's land. Both of these two teams just touch and go, not gonna commit anything at all.
Yeah, if NSL had more information on where the Nunu was, there's a chance that they could have stolen away the blue buff. Really good check from KALLYX to make sure that the blue buff isn't being taken. Like you mentioned, a lot of potential against this Garen.
Yeah, a lot of kill potential though. In fact, SG KALLYX will try to fight this all the way in, but Runshot, one turret shot, and NS10 still alive as well. In fact, oh my goodness, NXL just walks all the way up, pick up another kill as well. It feels like a replay of game number 1 earlier just now, when the mid laner transitioned all the way to the top lane, when SG KALLYX was a little bit too greedy. I don't know, man.
I think I know what this is. Look at the summon spells from Laws, and look at the summon spells from Garen. The Garen took Ignite, and the Darius took Barrier. If you had the Ignite there, 100% would have got the kill. I think that Barrier did save him initially, but you cut any chance of healing. I don't know. It just feels like it just felt like they had the right idea, but the execution was a little bit wonky. And in that time as well, that was a lot of space for NS13 to just keep farming up. Being able to just pick up the items that they want, start going for, start clearing out vision, a lot of concentrated vision towards the top side, which is, I don't think, the place they want to play for anymore.
Yeah, you mentioned about the vision, right? NS10, the wards that she plays has constantly scouted out Ranzong all the time. You remember just now I was saying when Ranzong tried to gank, she actually planted a ward at the tribush near the red side, and then after that, I don't know, is it luck or just game sense? But she planted another ward nearer to her side, and she spotted Ranzong once again. So I feel like SG KALLYX cannot try to gank the top side anymore, try to focus around the mid lane and even the bottom lane. And in fact, it's going to be a lane swap happening for both these two teams already, for the Dragon and the mid lane.
Yeah, no luck, all skill. That's what I'm gonna say. Uh, they're gonna start positioning towards this because that Infernal Drake's gonna be a really nice pickup.
It
I
is.
looking at the way things are going now, NS10 is a little bit slow in the rotation, whereas Laws looks like they're gonna start moving over first. Dragon going to be difficult to start up, especially with both sides in the way. Nunu traditionally is supposed to be a very easy secure on the Dragon pickup if you start it first. It's not as straightforward or as easy as it is in like traditional league. Like Wild Rift, it is gonna be tough, you know. And in the meantime, NSL forced the flash away from Polycaton. You know, that's the flash from Ziggs gone, and that laser from the Lux. It's not on a very long cooldown.
Yep, and in fact, I feel like NSL needs all these cooldowns, and SG KALLYX knows it. They do have more ultimates in their pocket. Ranchong will start with the snowball right here. It's going to be the jumping all the way in the big mega bombs, and here goes the ultimates that we're all talking about, stacking on top of each other. But no, the damage was not even able to land, but it is going to be a Nox and Golden coming up from the side, SG KALLYX. But here comes a reset as well, but won't be able to do anything as all. But Lawson constantly trying to look for, will not be able to find a reset. Finally picking up a double kill. Laws is a beast, looking for more kills, will be able to sacrifice himself. But with him taking along 3 members from NSL.
That was a beautiful Darius play, peak Darius gameplay, and you love to see it. And then Ghost jumps in, gets that death floaters and spinning all around.
Yeah, man.
NSL suffer as they watch that happen. NS13 knows there's no chance we fight this. There's no chance we grab this Infernal Drake away. KALLYX will get rewarded for their efforts. Time and time again, you bring in the hammer enough times. If the hammer doesn't work, you bring in a bigger hammer, and finally, they're gonna crack open the problem. NSL gonna start moving over to the Rift Tower, but this should be some time taken away from them for them to farm up. Whereas KALLYX, they're not even gonna try and contest this. They're gonna start pushing out these waves. Maybe even get this turret. I don't think Ghosts have damage to get this really, but it depends on how well they can shove out the mid lane.
Yeah, NSL probably gonna put down the Rift Herald around the mid lane. It feels like SG KALLYX is just racing for time. They're just gonna commit, and in fact, will be able to pick up the first turret gold for their side. You know, Rift Herald in the mid lane for the side of NSL. 2 members on the side. SG KALLYX is not in position to try to defend this, but well, NSL will not be able to take down the mid lane turret. So that's still like, you know, crisis averted for a bit, but SG KALLYX will walk into the 6-minute mark with a weaker mid lane turret.
Yeah, weaker mid lane turret, because if they manage to break this one open, they get to rotate around a little bit more, and Nunu does generally need a lot of space to be effective. So if they're able to get this, it's actually a pretty decent win for them. Now we actually get to see NSL play from the gold deficit, right? And this is not including the amount of stats and the kind of intangible money that you would get from that Infernal Drake. So NSL now playing on this back foot, I'm curious what this is going to mean for them, because so far we've only got to see them in a strong kind of like pillion position. Now they're just kind of playing at the back, you know, they're kind of hugging onto SG KALLYX, you know, going in for the ride.
Yeah, and you mentioned about, you know, SG KALLYX just so, like, it feels like they've graduated from a ballpeen hammer to a sledgehammer right now, but as we saw that, NSL, missed all that crucial skills coming in. SG KALLYX, Polycaton flashes away to safety.
You know what? We're not going to talk about that. The flash would have saved the Ziggs for sure anyway. Baiting it out. That's all it was.
Man.
That's all it was, you know. This also actually gives another target to SG KALLYX. It's great, amazing for them. They're going to be able to trade that one away, and it's not a big problem because think about what happens when they end up trading these targets. You get a very long lane, which is very good for Lost, because this is an opportunity for him to play into that 2v1, potentially outplay, kill his opponents. Whereas up in the Baron lane, you get that shuttle lane, so Ghost gets to play toward that side, and then Ghost is going to be able to do stuff. Have a good amount of threat on the NSL, but have that safety of that out-tier turret and just jump back in the event they start collapsing in on there. So a lot of things going in their favor right now. I think that kill kind of is a good representation of that as well.
Yeah, that kill is, I would say NSL did not path correctly over there, just giving that kills over to SG KALLYX, who is already on the ball right here. You spoke about the intangible money, and technically speaking, that Infernal Drake is like, I don't know, 100 gold, 200 gold worth in damage. That's how I see it. But SG KALLYX on the roll right here. In fact, they have more momentum with the turrets, and they have more momentum in their kill potential as well. And you mentioned NSL, you know, they feel like they're hugging each other as they walk around. But if you're going up against SG KALLYX, you don't really want to hug together, because you're going to be taking all the damage with the Death Lotus as well. In fact, Gamblings will be able to dash all the way in. NS13 looking a bit low. Flash over to the wall. Ghost will be able to follow all the way in. In fact, the jump and jumping all the way in will not be able to secure, but Laws is here right now, and she has a big axe, trying to look for more, will not be able to seek anything else.
Big axe, big hammer, who cares? Just tons of damage as the KALLYX get a lot of control once again. This is going to set them up for that dragon. I think it's very easy for them to play for this at this point. You know, the Ziggs get so much more space, being able to have this tanky front line absorbing damage. Now you have the Darius being able to pick up, some might argue, a not great defensive item with that Deadman's Plate, but you still have the ability to rush in quickly. Yeah, it's kind of up for contention, I think, but generally I'd say that more people believe that the Deadman's Plate isn't the best item, best tank item right now, but it gives them that movement speed, and if they're ahead as they are, you know, they can make use of the extra gold that they have to pick up some items that might not be at absolute.
Oh, I don't really like what NSL did earlier just now, using the Lux out laser already this earlier on, so no Dragon's Knight will be able to be coming out from the side of NSL. Once again, NSL's pathing still tightly packed as if, you know, COVID-19 never happened. KALLYX could just jump in, spread Death Lotus to every single one of the members, but NSL, at the very least, KALLYX just gave up that Drake, and now they're looking at the Baron instead.
Make sure you got that 2 meters apart, 1 meter, I don't know, whatever number they need to follow. They're actually gonna trade objectives on either sides. You know, this is full distancing right now. You talked about like the final spark. Final spark is actually on a really short cooldown, so you're gonna be able to get that back up pretty quickly, especially when you're playing for like these early fight, like these fights. You're able to chunk them up a little bit with that final spark, wait out the cooldown, and then go for the combo again. So I wouldn't be too worried about using it. You can just use it whenever you feel like that's necessary. In fact, you can use it for vision if you're worried. That's also a very viable option.
Yeah, and not only just vision right there. I feel like if KALLYX kind of made a mistake at the Rift Herald area, that NSL for like 1 second not only picks up the Drake, he also picked up the Rift Herald as well. So it's actually kind of a bit of a close call for KALLYX right there.
Yeah, they definitely. I think if you're playing Nunu and you see the chance for something to get stolen away, you feel kind of bad, right? You're like, oh man, I'm Nunu, I'm supposed to be able to secure this. The fact they got that close was definitely a little bit scary, a little bit concerning. But should be fine now. Okay, so continuing on, they get that Rift Herald again. It's just gonna make things a little bit more difficult for NSL to defend against, because as Ziggs is gonna have that satchel charge. You get a confirmed detonation of the turret if you time it right. So KALLYX really, I think, just have to get some tempo, bring the team in, escort them down into the mid lane, and break this turret open. Because once they do, I mean, NSL, they're just constricted, right? They really run out of their lifeblood. Maybe not even lifeblood. Maybe something more vital, oxygen, right? They just cut off the oxygen supply entirely. All the gold is gone. They won't be able to step up past their own jungle. It's a big issue for NSL.
Yeah, I like the fact that you kind of equate oxygen to gold, but here we go. As the Katarina goes into gold, and big Mega Bomb coming out from the Holland will not be able to secure any kills at all. But at the top side though, it is going to be a 2-man team going against Loss, but Loss will lose her life.
So finally something goes right for them. They're able to win that fight in the side lane. We talked a little bit earlier about like where the Darius wants to play for in the side lane. Slightly different assignment than how I had initially anticipated it, but it was really close. I mean, just look at how close that fight got, right? There was a good chance that Loss was going to be able to win that 2v1 matchup if they had started doing this split pushing thing a little bit earlier. Could have seen the Darius's gold advantage still come into much bigger impact and much bigger into play. That could have been a difference.
Yes, as now NSL just putting members and just putting champions right on top of the mid lane turret, right? I feels like NSL was just telling KALLYX, you gotta go through me before you can hit my turrets, because this turret's basically like that lifeline that you're talking about, right? That gold line that you're talking about, right? If they lose this, they're gonna give so much space over the side of KALLYX, and they don't want it. And now KALLYX, with this Rift Herald dropping down, say, hey, I really want to take this lifeline away. We'll be sending all the way down to the mid lane.
Oh, they took it down before I hit the turret. That's amazing. I mean, that goes both ways. Rangzong did an amazing job of getting the Riptide so close to the turret by flanking it, and then they managed to take it down that quickly. I mean, so many things were in play. That final spot to clear out the wave, and then very quickly responding by jumping in, hitting the eye, spiting it, all those things. And this is going to ensure that they keep that turret alive, at least for now, and maybe get them closer to being able to take down the turret of their own. It's an interesting fight. It's a bit of a wet noodle strike. Some damage from the Jace for sure, but not that much damage from the Garen yet.
Yep. Feels like it's just Laws just going back, or going all the way up top into a safe spot. You know, just playing it around the side lanes is what you're talking about. But it feels like Garen is slowly picking up some form of damage as long as you let him spin to win. But now it feels like both these two teams looking at this dragon right now, taking account of all the ultimates. It's all up. The smites are all up as well. They're ready to rumble. In fact, it's going to be SG KALLYX that has the dragon priority right now. Look at the pathing on NSL, looking at how they're putting Garen to try to divide SG KALLYX all the way up, turning this fight into a 3v5, but it is going to go all the way in right now. Big Mega Bombs will not be able to capture anything at all. The Dimension Justice landing on top will be able to execute, goes all the way down. That's one of the main key damage dealers. That's all the way down, but Lost is still with the big axe, but she will not be able to hold on to this axe a little bit longer. Will be able to walk away from the fight just with a single pixel of health as NSL just denies SG KALLYX from the Drake, but losing 2 members.
Yeah, I mean, they managed to stop them off the Drake temporarily, but they have to just walk back over because of the Nunu sustain with the bite, so they have to immediately walk back and start fighting for this again. They took down Ghost early on, and I thought that was going to be a one fight for them, but they weren't able to take down Lost, and that Darius resetting, coming back in now. NS13 running towards it themselves. NSL, I think, managed to sneak away this dragon. Lost is back with a reset. He's just as scary as he was before.
Yeah, with the big axe, looking at the Drake right now, looking a little bit low. I think that's a miss might right now, but NSL will be able to steal that Cloud Dragon away, but they will lose members once again. I'm not too sure whether that's worth it for NSL.
I mean, Lost is massive. She is absolutely massive. You have to be very careful when you step up against her. They were almost able to get something done. If it were 2 kills for the dragon, sure, maybe we can make an argument for that. But you gotta take into account that they lost the mid lane turret as well. Not only that, they also lost the fight prior to this.
Wow, do you not see that Encore coming in, just bouncing off at max range and hit one people and then just spreads all across the board. But NSL will not be able to find that follow-up. But that Encore was beautiful.
Yeah, big Encore. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, unfortunately, you won't be able to follow up with that. So it's yeah, it's a bit of a missed opportunity. I think, you know, unlike the final spot, Encore is actually on a very long cooldown, so you need to be a little bit careful about when you end up using it.
Yeah, I think NSL, you know, slowly losing that momentum that they've gained in game number 1. We were talking about this before we walked into drop. SG KALLYX feels like, you know, with Lost starting to grasp all these parts of the game, in fact using the final spark to kind of scout out the members of SG KALLYX. SG KALLYX has been defending that mid lane turret that I couldn't even see like how healthy it is, but it feels like it's going to go down with just a simple love tap from the side of NSL.
The problem now with NSL, I think, is that they've, like we mentioned, lost a lot of the space they could previously walk towards. So even now, what they're trying to do is quite risky, because they could end up facing off against the Nunu running in, against the Darius running in, like we're starting to see now. When you extend like this, NS10 being, I think, the only one that's able to step up like this, bring the rest of the team with her.
Yeah, bringing the rest of the team with her, but does SG KALLYX just force the retreat right there? Not going to commit alongside with Garen. But I feel like with the Garen kind of baited a lot of members from the side of SG KALLYX to just try to greed after her, right? Then suddenly NSL just surprised, I'm bringing like the whole village alongside with me to try to fight you down. But it feels like SG KALLYX looking at the Baron right now, it is going to be Ghost split pushing at the bottom side. That's the state of the game that's going in right now. A little bit slower pace, if you ask me, going into the late game.
Today is a good day to die.
And this change of pace, I think, is actually beneficial for NSL because I think they continue to scale up pretty decently. But the Katarina is going to have a lot more damage now, completing the Void staff. So a lot of the magic resist that we see from NSL is going to be, well, Void, right? So stuff like the Force of Nature. You know, we saw a bit of magic resist from the Javan from NS13 for a second, and then she just said, "Yeah, well, I don't think there's a point in going for that anymore. I just need more HP, more raw stats, so I get to survive against these." And it's so difficult for them to face off. Now with this mixed amount of damage, you have to worry about the Darius, who has a lot of true damage as well. And that's true damage based on percent health. So the more health you have, the more damage Darius gets to do as well. Very easy for them to kind of, well, it's very easy for SG KALLYX now to just kind of run into them, but NSL need more time to get into a point where they can at least trade decent.
Yeah, but I feel like SG KALLYX, you know, giving time over the NSL is going to benefit NSL a lot, right? That's what you mentioned. And SG KALLYX looking for some opportunities to trying to split, even using the Katarina to split, but I feel like they're really playing it safe against NSL. NSL is rotating as 5. Literally, you know, like what we joked earlier just now, just ignoring the COVID-19 restrictions, just walking around with 5-man group, looking for pick-offs over the side of SG KALLYX. And SG KALLYX, I think they play into the fear, into that fear. NSL wants them to be scared about the fact that, you know, I could appear with 5 men and gank one of you guys if you guys try to split push, as the Elder Dragon will be spawned right now, and SG KALLYX already having Dragon Prior.
Yeah, Elder Dragon is actually a really big priority for both these teams, so they have to try and fight for this. Like we mentioned earlier, last game we saw SG KALLYX have a big issue getting into the pit early on and get control over the objective. This time around, they don't have that issue whatsoever. They're going towards it. They're getting a lot of pressure down right away, and NSL, they need to make something happen.
NSL looking to try to sneak themselves all the way in, looking a little bit low. NS13 jumps over the wall. It is going to be nice engage coming out, but it is going to be hero entrance. And in fact, SG KALLYX managed to secure the Elder Dragon, and now NSL try to fight it, try to juke it out for the life, but it feels like SG KALLYX is starting to slowly fall all the way down. There's no respect coming out from NSL, and that no respect is actually giving NSL that lead. But however, SG KALLYX still secure the Elder Dragon in the end of the day.
Yeah, they managed to get the Elder Drake, but that's a big loss for them in the terms of the players that they have, and this could end up being the Baron, which could be a saving grace for them. The Elder Drake is definitely going to hurt a decent amount. If they get this trade back, maybe not so bad at all.
I really agree with you, because, you know, SG KALLYX, they lost too many members over to the Dragon Pit right now, so it's up to SG KALLYX to try to commit to that steal. Looking at the ultimates of Ziggs, I think that's the only thing that could try to steal away. It's still under cooldown, but what the heck? Oh my god, that's so tilting coming out from NSL.
Yeah. Well, you know, these things happen. You know, it's it's a nice Saturday. It's right in the afternoon. Gambling. It's gonna take that one away. Galio, Gragas. I mean, AP bot lane supports. I guess that just works super well in their favor. They steal away the Baron. They also have the Mountain. Come on, Zerva, you don't have to do that dirty like that. We don't need to look at it. You don't have to zoom in on NS13 like that. Wolf, we feel for her. I'm gonna give her a moment in silence. You can say whatever you want. I'm just gonna be very quiet this minute.
I need to recover from this. Like, you know, whenever those objective fight comes in, right, I start to weigh, oh, who has the higher chance of stealing? I'm looking at Polykaton. She has the higher chance of stealing, but I would never expect Gambling going in with the first skill that, well, not known to do a lot of damage. Well, a lot of DOTs, yes, but that's such a big kick against NSL's plans to try to win this series.
Yeah, it's going to make things so much easier for KALLYX. I think they're much closer towards that win. I think at this point, NSL need a pretty miraculous turnaround in the fight. It's already costing a lot to try and win out the exchanges, and once you get removed from that Seraphine ultimate, you're not going to be any closer to that turnaround.
Yeah, you know, it's really hard to turn around for an NSL, right? Just look at what are the odds stacked against NSL. KALLYX have the Elder Drake, they have the Baron buff, and Laws has the bigger axe. Yeah, well, Garen has a big, you know, Claymore, that kind of thing that tried to spin, but that's not going to be enough because actually KALLYX is starting to slaughter NSL's turrets. In fact, going to be focusing on the Nexus itself, and GG goes over the game number 2 for SG KALLYX.
They return the favor, evening up the score back 1-1. KALLYX get a very nice little win with some very impressive moments. Baron steal to ensure the victory after a potential slip up around that dragon fight. That's okay though. Recover, get back in there. Very close game between both sides. NSL 12-12 with the gold difference being very marginal. We saw the gold jump back and forth a little bit towards the end of that match. Gold graph looking pretty flat for the most part. I think we're looking at two teams that are very evenly skilled and matched. So I think going into this next one, the final game in the best of 3, it's going to be whichever team drafts the composition they're more comfortable with and is better able to execute with.
Yeah, I feel like I need a break. Just thinking, I'm still like having like withdrawal symptoms from that gambling still, but I feel like gambling's just won the game. In my heart, all right, in my heart, she just won the game for SG KALLYX. That slip up for the side could have costed this whole series, but gambling's just won it all the way back with just one skill, and it's not even an ultimate, right? And it's coming out from a mid tank that somehow just stole the. Okay, I'm gonna like I'm still having
not even mid tank support Galio.
Oh, yes,
right?
Support Galio.
Support Galio steals that one away. Yeah, you're right. I think you very well could have saved that game. There was a chance that NSL could have pulled back to got that Baron, but that's okay. We're going to focus moving forward on what that's going to mean for both these teams.
Yep, and speaking with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into a short break. Don't go away. NSL going up against SG KALLYX. Very tight series, and we'll catch you after that break. Welcome back to FSL World with Open. This is day 1 of playoffs, and the first series is already a best of 3 with a roller coaster ride, I would say. Still having a bit of withdrawal symptoms. My name is Jay. Joining me right here is also Crandon, and wow, it's gonna be game number 3 going into this series.
Why'd you check down when you were looking for the word roller coaster? Do you have like a mini roller coaster set underneath you?
No, it's just the script thing, you know, like
you have the script thing. Okay, it's all scripted, confirmed here live on broadcast by Jays. So now we know. Thank you very much for making it so entertaining, because so far we've seen a lot of interesting ideas come through from both these teams, both very different dynamics. NSL showed us 2 different compositions entirely, being able to play a lot of the meta champions, but also being able to play into a very interesting idea with that Lux Seraphine. Unfortunately for them, I think they lacked a bit of the damage necessary to close out the game, especially against a very tanky team like the one that was drafted by SG.
Yeah, I still favor NSL's game number 1's draft, right? It feels like everything was going well for them, and if you notice in game number 1, they was targeting most of the bans coming out from Laws, just focusing on a lot of Baron lane bans, and in fact securing a very good Baron laner for themselves. But also, let's not count Space as SG KALLYX all the way out, because they feel like they know how to grasp like all these macro decisions going into game number 2. Yep, there were a lot of close calls, but I mean, yeah, withdrawal symptoms still there after that Winds of War still.
It reflects really well on them because they were able to understand what needed to be done. You can see their macro is really on point. And the thing is, I think because of the Ziggs, it actually gave them a lot more space to work with. I think it was very difficult for NSL to try and capitalize and shove in these turrets early on. So what we saw happen was when NSL were looking to try and push out, Ziggs clear out the waves, and then you started to see them try and trade, because that's the most common response, right? If I can't siege you out entirely, I'm going to go to the side lane and try and trade turrets there. But it actually turned out to be more favorable in the long run for KALLYX, because they had that theirs was scaling up out of control anyway, so could handle the 2v1 in a lot of these situations. Yeah, so hopefully going into this next one, a bit of a shift in mindset perhaps.
Yep, bit of shift in mindset is desperately needed. In fact, NSL will be picking up the Jace once again for themselves. Space Game Mechanics going back to the Ziggs and Galio, which worked very well into game number 2, and NSL securing the Renekton right off the bat. the Nunu will be locked in once again from the side of Space Gamer KALLYX. So maybe NSL may ban away the Darius to take that away from Laws because it was causing so much problem in their draft in game number 2.
Interestingly enough, the Renekton is actually going to change for them as well. So having a bit of a stronger matchup, even if it were going to end up being that Darius, I think Renekton Darius is a little bit better for the Renekton than Renekton Garen.
Yeah.
So maybe they ban away the Garen instead and then leave the Darius as an option for KALLYX. That being said, because they now have that Ziggs Galio combo again, a lot of safeties afforded to them, they get to play back a lot. They get to play very far back, and so maybe there needs to be a bit of more initiation from NSL to be able to dive into the backline and take out this big damage threat. But then again, you also have like other threats that you have to worry about. So the Darius, like you mentioned, is going to be banned away. It's something that they didn't enjoy playing against last game. It was just too tanky. There are too many issues that were followed with that. So get rid of that and play closer to the composition that you want to work with.
Yeah, someone who could try to engage and try to dive into the soft the back line like the Ziggs or the the marksmans that KALLYX may pick up for. There's nothing that come into my mind. Maybe like a Zen or Assassin to try to snipe down these key targets. Just basically you don't fight a wall, right? You just try to jump over the wall and then just find the back line.
Yeah, jump over the wall.
Yeah.
But Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and he never got put back together again. So it kind of depends on how you view it, right? Because you could very well play an assassin, like you mentioned, but at the same time, what ends up happening is maybe your assassin just never gets off the ground, and he never skills up. Is going to be able to output some damage, and you've encountered basically the same issue. That being said, because of NSL's composition so far, already showing that Renekton Jace, I think it's quite unlikely to see an assassin at this point, unless they go for an assassin jungler.
True.
Could work. Don't get me wrong, could definitely work. But maybe what they need now is just a little bit more reliable crowd control that's going to be able to allow the Jace, the Corki, to output more damage like they want to. I'm trying to figure out like what could be good here. I think the Javan was something that worked decently for them before. Maybe didn't have the best game too, but I think Javan could fit quite well in the composition they have, especially with the package, just kind of like setting up all together.
Yeah, I really agree with the Javan right there, but I feel like there is going to be people that are going to dive towards the Corki and the Jace, right? Jace and Corki needs a little, basically try to put themselves down into one spot and just constantly pew all the way in. But with the Pantheon, with the ultimate, I think that's something that NSL has to be a little bit careful about. But there comes Nami, right? Just to try to slow down with the bubble. In fact, with the ultimate as well, just to push the members of KALLYX away. It basically serves the same role as what Seraphine did in game number 2. And now NSL, the Akshan going back in once again.
Okay, actually playing back for the Akshan. Worked pretty well for them in game 1. I think they've been preparing for this. It's a strategy and an idea that's been quite popular in the NA region. And I know that Southeast Asia actually tried to make it work earlier on. I say Southeast Asia, but I feel like it's more like the Malaysian region. The Malaysian region started really early on with this. And then we saw some of it extend towards the NA region. I think they also ended up doing quite a bit of work with the Akshan, but hasn't seen as much popularity from like some of the Eastern region teams, I would say. So coming into this one, really liking what they have this time around compared to what they had before. A lot more consistent DPS. It's going to be easy to work against stuff like the Nunu, stuff like the Galio. Whereas the long range poke AP heavy composition that KALLYX have make it very easy for them to play towards the objectives, where they get to poke you out before the fight even starts.
Yeah, I was worried about KALLYX not having a marksman. In fact, NSL does have like 2 marksmen on the side. They've got a lot of pushing power in terms of taking down turrets and also taking down tankiness coming off on the side of KALLYX. But NSL, I'm looking at their draft. There's not really someone that could basically eat all these pokes coming out from KALLYX. So I think NSL just have to be careful when they path around these team fights. They cannot allow themselves. I really have to agree with you right there, Brandon. They cannot allow themselves to get whittled down and then try to fight.
Yeah.
It's really going to be a tough uphill battle for NSL.
And even with the Nami, when you want to try and start healing up, there's no way you're going to be able to out-heal the damage output from the Ziggs and the Ari and the Pantheon. So there's only so much you can do to kind of band-aid the problem. It's still a massive one that you have to try and overcome. And the Nami isn't going to be able to resolve that, but that tidal wave does make things a little bit easier when you want to start picking up these fights.
Yeah, as we, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna hop into game number 3. Like, this is this is technically becoming and best of one between these two teams. Both shown very strong potential. But speaking about potential, what is this sneaky bleaky coming out from SG KALLYX?
They're gonna rotate across. I think they do get vision of them. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
You know what, James? I would know a few casters that would be very upset with you saying this becoming a best of one. They were very passionately debating about this, saying that no, this is not how that plays out. And she's gonna jump back in, try and smite through that away, but it goes over to the Nunu anyway.
Yep, it is going to be going over to the Nunu. KALLYX has already done the damage. In fact, going to lay down even more damage on top of Jace. NS13 will be a little bit slowed down in terms of that jungle clear as SG KALLYX. What a great start already going in as NS10, you know, just farming to her heart's content on the top side.
Yeah, just gets the free space to start farming and maybe crashing away. Because it's going to mean that Lost loses a little bit of EXP, but is that worth first blood gold? I don't think so. I don't think that's how it works. They maybe get a little bit of vision there. It's unfortunate for NS13. She jumped in trying to steal that one away, but I mean, it's going to be that Nunu. It's very difficult for you to steal away anything from the Nunu. So now I have to try and foul out a little bit behind in EXP because of that buff. Not even level 2, I think, at least at the very least, Jace has decent enough wave clear by themselves to be able to start scaling up. And they're going to try and grab that Skull Crab early on, but Nunu's on the same side now. There's a chance that he could end up taking this one away even with Smite.
Yeah, Ranzong really knows where NS13 is right now,
faster.
and that's going to be a very bad thing. And ooh, is it Scuttlecrab stolen away? No, it is going to be secured by NS13. Ranzong looking a little bit low, forced to flash away, and now NSL finds where the money's worth. Just a bit of a revenge from that cheeky invade earlier just now. We'll be able to equalize that gold and damage.
Good rotation from NS19 to walk over first. I'm not sure at this point if we should just be saying like what the names of the stations that they're at, but NS19 rotates over first, gets to be in position and cuts off before the Ari can get there. NS13 is looking for a dive here, but then the response from Ranzong is going to mean they have to back off here. I don't think they can take this fight. They definitely cannot take this fight, especially on the turret. I don't think they can take the fight in a 2v2 anyway.
Yep. I don't know. I'm looking at NS13. She does have a very long range pull, but NS19 though, this Archon has been rotating so well. Always at the right place at the right spot whenever she plays this Archon, and now NS13 will decide to jump all the way in. As NS19 jumps, circles a little bit right there, but would not be able to connect any form of damage right now. But here comes Ghost in the brush, just waiting to pounce on top of these unsuspecting NSL, well, North-South Lines members.
Level 5 for the Renekton gives them the ultimate. That is not, the same cannot be said for KALLYX. They don't have any ultimates in the top side, but I don't think that matters. It's still too difficult for them to take that fight. If they try and go for that, the turret is just going to act as a huge problem for them. So they need to back off, start to reset, grab the farm that's existing on the bottom side of the map because they're losing out on the chance for that. Now they get to rotate over back into the mid lane, start getting some tempo, clear out the waves, and play towards the objectives that come about as a result of that. It's going to be a Cloud Drake to start things off, so I think both teams could benefit from the Rift Herald. But looking at how the pace of the game is going, I think KALLYX are looking to maybe going to concede the Rift Herald and just pick up the Dragon.
Yeah, I really feel like KALLYX really need that Rift Herald because they don't really have that pushing power, as what I mentioned earlier just now during the draft pick. But NSL though, like, I feel like they've slowly climbed all the way back into fighting form against SG KALLYX. Yes, they were the victims of that crazy invade right there, but you know, I really admire NSL just climbing all the way back up. It feels like both these two teams looking at this Cloud Drake pit already. In fact, SG KALLYX secured the Scuttler cap right now, and I hear the package being picked up from the side of NSL. They're ready to fight.
Yeah, they've got the package. Ultimate not available for KALLYX and far away from the level 5 ultimate as well, so it's going to be much more tricky to deal with this as they jump in on the Galio.
Jumping on the Galio it is, and the Galio will be the first victim coming out from the side of NSL. Lois jumping in, will be able to put down some damage on the flash, will be used as well. NSL just whips him all the way out back here. Speaking of whipping all the way out, the bubble picks up the Nunu at the same time as NSL stole the Cloud Drake away from KALLYX.
Gets her revenge, NS13 finally finds the smite steal away from the Nunu. Ranxiong wasn't able to keep up with the tempo there. A lot of issues to start things off, right? NS19 jumps in really deep to start it off and ends up losing her life. Ideally, you want the Akshan to be alive as long as you can so that you're able to kill off that final opponent, the villains, revive your teammates, and move into towards the next objective prematurely earlier. Well, prematurely kind of has a negative connotation to it, but you want to move into the objective earlier than your opponent can, and that's the power of the Akshan. So the fact that Akshan dies so early on is a little bit not reflective of them. Now they get to reset, go back towards the Rip Town, and it seems like they get both neutral objectives on the map.
Yeah, that is going to be a very big win over the side of NSL, right? Picking up these two neutral objectives, and SG KALLYX just decides to rush in to the bottom side, trying to get that first turret gold that they desperately need, but NSL will be leading the charge in the mid lane, cracking open that to limit the Nunu's rotation, but it's still, you know, SG KALLYX picking up the first turret gold.
First turret, but the Rift Tower is actually going to get a second charge if they escort it down into the mid lane. The Pantheon, I don't think, can stop him by himself, so Laws just end up giving the charge away. So not too bad. They lose first turret gold, but they actually get that second charge on that tier 2 mid in a turret. So I'm quite liking what NSL did there. The trade seems to be pretty worthwhile.
Yeah, NSL feeling on a little bit of battle on this form right now. SG KALLYX playing from behind. Don't forget, Ranzong as this Nunu needs space to charge up with a snowball and just wants to build a snowman whenever she wants to do it, but NSL is just putting a hold over there, already rotating.
Is that
to
like
the
a Frozen joke kind of thing? Is that some kind of like attempt at a Frozen joke?
It's not in my script, by the way. But in the meantime, you know, NSL, I really like what they're doing this far.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, right? They get to have so much more space now, and they're being able to play together. You actually see both supports roam up into the Baron lane to try and maybe look for a counter gank. That being said, the Renekton, I think, just generally has a better matchup into this, so if they take this 2v2 fight, it goes in their favor. But look at how much discipline they have to not overextend as the rest of the team is bot side. You have to have this presence of mind, this awareness to say, my team is in mid lane, is in bot lane. I don't know where the enemy team is. They could be anywhere on the map, and this means that they have to be concerned about going too far forward and taking fights that they might potentially lose, whereas they get to continue and pick up targets on the other end of the map, basically scot-free.
Yeah, that was absolutely basically KALLYX giving a free turret over the side of NSL. That's not a very good thing for KALLYX. In fact, also using the ultimate just to, you know, TP all the way to the top, just to prevent, you know, NSL from taking even more turrets away from them. I think actually KALLYX is making these macro mistakes, and they just have to fortify all the way in. Taking a look at the gold lead right now, still favoring NSL, but KALLYX does have the ROA, which gives so much return on investment as the game time goes by.
That's the Luden's Echo. They don't have to run out of
Luden's
pages,
Echo,
so they don't even get that return of interest, right? The return on investment. Instead, one of the biggest issues and shortcomings they have is KALLYX. They don't even have good support items right now. The Galley is looking for the engage, so he has that rocket belt, but look at what the Nami has. Nami's already building into another item, has the locket too. These dragon fights are so much better for NSL. The last fight, we didn't even get to see the hero's entrance. This is going to be so impactful. NSL have an easy opportunity to collapse in on them. You get this flank coming through from the Akshan potentially as well, and package timing is perfect. They get to rotate back in. I mean, I just can't understate this enough, or overstate this enough, Jace. You know, it's just such a good position. NSL have all the tools in the right, or all the pieces in the right place. If they don't take the maximum value out of each play, this Ari gets to scale up, this Ziggs gets to scale up, it becomes a big problem for them in the late game.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like KALLYX really want this Mountain Drake right now, but they're nowhere in the position to try to get it. NSL will have the Dragon priority. It's gonna, this Mountain Drake, I feel like actually KALLYX really wants it, but picking up the Scuttler will be able to allow them to have vision over to that Drake. But NSL, you know, they've secured so much lead for themselves, and KALLYX playing from behind this time round, but you know, NSL just allowing SG KALLYX to score, to try to scale once again, allow them space to scale, allow them space to farm up. It's going to be a little bit tough for, you know, NSL to try to fight KALLYX in the late game.
This is a crazy thing, right? You can't walk into the Dragon Pit because you get constricted you're playing pretty claustrophobic because all the ultimates get to come in, especially on the way that the maps are kind of sighted. To get an easy angle, you have stuff like the Pantheon ult and the Galio ult. All these things get to play into it. Plus the Ziggs Mega Inferno Bomb. So much damage comes in that tiny, tiny concentrated space. NSL need to be careful about that. They had great presence to not push their lead too far and try and take that, especially when they didn't have to. This does mean that the package times out without being able to use it though, but instead they don't give themselves a chance to make a misplay and run the risk of dying unless they just walk in like that.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was worried about. You know, NSL pushing their limits a little bit too much. But finally, this second Rift Herald will be able to secure its job of the first one, which did kind of good. But you know, NSL has broke through all the mid lane turrets right now as KALLYX focus their attention on this Mountain Drake. I think NSL may give it away to them. I don't think there's any way for them to try to steal it off. Well, I said that for the last in game number 2 where KALLYX just stole it off for some weird reason, but this Mountain Drake will be very good for KALLYX because they're going to build up even tankier. Nunu, the Galio, and even the Pantheon will benefit greatly from this.
We've sung praises for NSL up to the point, and they just had to make it happen. It's cast a curse or what? I don't know. But it was unfortunate because up until that point, it felt like their macro decision making was really on point. They knew what needed to be done. They walked away from the Dragon Pit. They got that Rift Tower. Rift Tower broke open the mid lane turret, and for a second, it looked like that was all they needed to do. Right? Because you get the position towards the Dragon again.
Yep, Heroic Entrance will be able to activate and taunting 2 members from the side of NSL, but there's not enough damage coming off from the side of KALLYX as well. Big bomb coming in, but will not be able to face NSL away. NSL snipes down the turret and they just walk away. I think, you know, that is a huge win for NSL from that team fight. They've done what they needed. They're just gonna back off.
So being able to pick up that turret there is a really good pickup for them, so they managed to recover pretty decently after that last one. But going back to what happened in mid lane, right? So they being able to pick up that turret, then they start walking over into the mid lane. They were supposed to pick that one up pretty easily, and with that dragon available, it's constantly meant that that SG was going to have to walk in on them. They needed to go back towards that dragon pit to make sure that that NSL don't get it for free because it just gives them so much space. And it also allows for the next dragons to spawn.
Yep. Ooh,
and they get the Renekton again.
Yeah, Renekton actually flashes over to that fake wall, but it is going to be 4 member on top of that crocodile. Would not be able to survive to see anything for long. But this means that, you know, NSL has ultimate information that, you know, KALLYX will not be able to do anything, taking away the red buff from that Nunu as well, as they're going to try to secure this turret at the top side.
Ziggs is going to do a really good job of clearing out the wave, so you can see just stops them in their tracks. They won't be able to continue, whereas with KALLYX, they get to move down to the bottom side, pick up that turret, they actually come up ahead in the grand scheme of things with these trades. NSL still with a bit of a gold lead, but with this Baron coming up, with the Dragon coming up, the objectives that are available to them that they can easily pick up are starting to become more restricted. It's not so clear cut, you know. You just can't just go, well, NSL need to get A, B, C, and then they'll win the game. It's not so clear cut anymore. KALLYX is scaling up to some extent, and so now you have a pretty good opportunity to probably block out NSL's engage and NSL's pickups for these turrets, for these objectives. It's going to be a lot more tricky. I'm curious to see what that plan is going to be.
Yeah, at this point of time, it's a very well-balanced seesaw. Both these 2 teams poised to pick up this series. This is best of 3. This is the 3rd game in the best of 3. None of them are basically allowing each other to, you know, give that lead by accident. Well, we don't talk about that Renekton walking into a bunch of people, but I mean, both these 2 teams, there's a lot of focus right now, and you are starting to sense a bit of a fatigue going in from the side of these 2 teams when they start to make a bit of a macro mistakes, you know, giving kills over to each other. But it is going to be, you know, NSL right around the Baron pit. They're not allowing KALLYX to just walk away scot-free.
Dragon coming up in about half a minute means they need to start positioning around that. Last time around, package wasn't able to be used effectively. The package is in base, so they get to start making their recalls and rotate over for that. If they get into position first, it actually doesn't make that big of a difference because that's what KALLYX want to do, right? They want to re-engage onto you when you're stuck in that dragon pit. So they actually need to be more aggressive and forthcoming with this by shoving out these lanes. So NS10 is a big vulnerability in that plan. If NS10 gets caught out before the fight even starts, the game is the plan is over. The game strat does not work anymore. So they need to shove out the mid side, they need to shove out the bot side, and free up space so they can pick up this Infernal Drake safely. Whereas KALLYX, they're okay with this game state. They get the recall, they get to come back. They're pretty nonchalant about this. It's easy for them. They just need for NSL to make a mistake. But that's not the most ideal situation, you could say. Like, you don't really want to hope your opponent makes a mistake to win the game, right?
Yeah, and you talk about KALLYX. This is the game state where it's up to NSL's initiative to do whatever that's right. KALLYX could just let NSL to try to especially now try to take down this Infernal Drake. You can see the bombs going in, the package activated just to actually go all the way off. KALLYX takes over the Dragon Pit right now. Look at NSL, they just gave that Infernal Drake away. This is exactly what we're talking about. KALLYX waiting for NSL to make a mistake. NSL made a mistake. KALLYX just take it.
You know what? I called it. I said what was going to happen. They played into what was going to happen. Now they need to defend the mid lane, and they have to give away NS10 again. Right? It just becomes a repeating action. They thought that they could pick that one because they had the package that was going to be able to get them into the pit faster, or maybe help them disengage faster. I'm not sure what it was, but ultimately you saw what happened. They have so many angles to kind of collapse in on them. NSL just need to play backwards at that point, and that means the objective is going to be given away. Baron being the next one, though, is going to be a little bit different. The way that the map is shaped means that it's more difficult for them to get into the pit compared to before. It's actually more advantageous to NSL to be able to play towards that Baron pit. Not so easy for KALLYX.
Yeah, but on one point of hand, you can see, KALLYX, they do have global ultimates, right? Polycaton with the very long range AoE. Lols could just dive right over the wall. You also have the Nuno with the movement speed to build a snowman once again right into the enemy's faces. There's so many options for KALLYX to jump over that wall to engage to find NSL. So I'm not too worried about that. In the meantime, NSL, I feel like they're licking the wounds just a little bit now because KALLYX is just hard shoving the mid lane, trying to put so much pressure in the mid lane so that, and while NSL is busy defending that, KALLYX could just walk around the lane to try to do some economy damage and try to secure some neutral objectives.
I mean, you look at the game state as it is right now. Who do you think is ahead in gold, right? Don't look at the gold score. Just look at what's happening on the map. Who would you think is ahead? If I were you, I mean, honestly, I would say red side, right? Looks like red side's ahead here, but actually, NSL is up by 5,000 gold almost. They're still ahead. They're supposed to still be in the driver's seat, but they've lost that control of the map. And now that goal difference is starting to look less and less. Those dragons that they have, both the Infernal and the Mountain Drake, are so pivotal and offer so much value that the goal doesn't fully represent what's happening here.
Yeah, I really like the fact that you pointed that out, man, because it's like, you usually would think that the team with the most gold should have the map dominance, should have the most initiative, but it feels like KALLYX is slowly creeping up. I think, like what you mentioned, the Mountain Drake was the one that's really pivotal that allowed them to get that Infernal Drake. That's how I see it, because they're so tanky right now. It takes NSL so much investment to try to take down, well, even Lols, even Ranzong and Gambling X as well. And NSL, I would say, accidentally allowed KALLYX to be in this state. And KALLYX is just like, waiting and hoping NSL makes a mistake once again. And I don't know, but it could tip. It could tip to both these two teams, and it's a really hard game for NSL.
Sure. I think the biggest issue is going to be how they deal with this Ahri. The Ahri has so much wave clear, has so much aggression, whereas the Kalki has a very difficult time trying to step up into range. And at 17 now is starting to face some of those problems, where KALLYX is going to be able to just play towards that Baron very easily, close out that distance. NSL need to play into it, they need to pick up the package, maybe get a jump on them somewhere. The Akshan maybe gets a miraculous heal and saves the game by being able to pull back from everything.
Yeah, and also don't forget, you mentioned about Ahri, right? That charm is going to be a big problem, right? So what KALLYX will do is just poke them with that charm, pick one person, and that's it. As long as KALLYX was able to land that charm down, NSL will find themselves in a manpower deficit because of the burst damage coming out from the Ahri and the follow-up coming out from the KALLYX. But now Lols, against NX13, finally a bit of a scuffle happening, but Lols going to Golden right now, trying to buy some time, but it would not be necessary right now. KALLYX Losing one member right there. Polycutton almost going down. Akshan tried to chase, but would not be able to connect the damage as NSL finally breaks off from that, that stalemate, and now they have map dominance once again.
I'm not even sure I call that map dominance. They have
no,
a
it's
small window, but with 30
Yeah.
seconds left on the death timers, Lost gets to ult back in and jump back into the fight right away once they respawn. Elder Drake's available, so they can't just walk towards the Baron. They actually have to take one objective at a time. The question is which one they end up playing for. Is going to get stunned up for a second. The package aggressively forward, knowing the charm isn't there from the army, and then you get to build some space while they move back towards this dragon.
Yeah, and NS10, receiving that charm once again. It's going to be Runzone flashing over the wall, activating the Absolute Zero. NS10 looking a little bit low right now. Hero entrance landing at the same time. Both these two teams would not give this this Ocean Drake up. It's going to be a very big objective for both these two teams. But KALLYX does have the Drake opportunity. NS19 tried to dish out some damage. Gambling Axe actually absorbing some good damage coming out from them, while as keeping NSL busy away from the objective. Well, it is going to be KALLYX losing two members, but this Drake is still up and is now fighting for both these two teams. LowX looking a little bit low as, okay, NS19 going into golden once again. NS11, there's no way for you to be there. Forced to flash away. And now this Crocodile comes back into the fight with, this spread of stunning as well. Being revived by NS19 is such a nutty fight happening right here at the Dragon Pit.
He got the instant revive, right? That was the instant
Yeah,
revive on the Renekton and on the Corki, right? So that brings them back into the game. Now they have 4 players. They get to play towards this Elder Drake. They actually have enough time to also go for the Baron, I think.
Yeah, and remember what we're talking about, right? The Akshan's revive has been nutty, and it actually worked for NSL side. Yes, I don't really have the tankiness, but I do have the revive, and now NSL will take this Ocean Dragon away from KALLYX.
Yeah, the Elder Drake's there. Now they get to play towards the Baron side right away. I think that was teleport picked up by NS13, so maybe get to rotate over. I'm not sure if she switched back or whatever the case is, but they get to play towards the Baron first. They get to have the control around that Baron pit, and now there's no dragon they have to worry about. It's much easier for them to play towards this dragon pit and get control here, and much more difficult for KALLYX to jump in with the ultimates that they have.
Yeah, NSL just literally, you have two problems right now. What NSL did is tackle one problem at a time. So really props over to the side of NSL, and now they could just focus most of their manpower around this Baron pit as well. Don't forget, KALLYX has pushed up lanes. Top lane super open, the mid lane is also super open for them. So KALLYX needs to try to constantly shove, and once you have to force to constantly shove, NSL could just swoop in, picks up the Baron for themselves, and just walk away.
Stay of the map, very interesting in this point. We're just crossing the 22.5 minute mark. We're going firmly into that mid to late game at this point. Baron attempt started by NSL. They managed to open up that top side turret. So now Super Minions crashing Infinite Wave, and that's going to be the case for the rest of this game. Constantly something to watch out for. Package available in base. Just taking stock check of what could be done. NSL, they have the opportunity to play for this Baron, and every time they do, KALLYX need to be aware of this, start rotating over. They actually have vision in the pit, so it's difficult for them to start this one and take it all the way through.
Yeah, in the meantime, there's so many globals that NSL has to be careful about. Even Laws could just jump in from like a mile away right into the pit, and it will make NSL very hard to secure. A lot of discipline going in for the side of NSL, right? They're not tunnel vision in trying to take this Baron away, even though it could be the difference between life and death of this particular series.
Actually almost gets the kill onto the Ziggs, manages to take away the Hourglass. Such a vulnerability from KALLYX. Now they have to constantly be playing towards that Ziggs, and they shred this Baron so quickly. Come on, break the blast cone, please break the blast cone. Yes!
Yeah, so, but you can see NSL, there's a lot of burst potential coming out from this side. You can look at how low the Baron was able to be pushed all the way down with just a small little millisecond, because they do have the pushing power. And now with the marksman coming online, KALLYX is the one that doesn't have all these marksmen to just try to secure like these key objectives. So I would feel like NSL's decision to draft the Corki and draft the Akshan, if they know they're gonna sit here for at least 24 minutes, is starting to pay off.
see where you're coming from. It feels like that. It feels like that is the case with the Akshan. Koki with the big ones are able to get some decent damage down. The big problem that I think that KALLYX has is just the lack of agency, right? To say that with the Ziggs, with the Ari, there's a little bit of a lack of agency. You're kind of relying on the enemy team to kind of run into you. At the same time, you want to run into them. And so it's both ways from, you know, it's a kind of a, it's kind of a what's the right term for this? Is it opposing kind of like mindset shift for KALLYX? Because they want to do both things, right? They want to jump in, but they also want the enemy team to play into them. So it's very difficult for them at this point. The team's identity is a little bit lacking compared to what NSL have, which is a lot more straightforward and a lot more in place. So we get to see more from the NSL squad than we might from KALLYX.
Yeah, I feel like they're trying to be, you know, master of Jack. No. Jack of all trades, but you know, master of none. And there's not a role that could actually fulfill very well. They could do a little bit of a lot of things, but NSL, right, it still comes in with more damage, right? They really just zeroed in on all that damage. They do have the poke coming up from Jace that could poke from someone, but oh, okay, NS17, you will be able to use the packet jumping all the way in. It is going to be Ziggs going into Golden once again. Flash will not be able to save her at all. Will be giving herself over to NSL. Now, that's one very key damage dealer side of KALLYX gone. NSL, this is a small window that could use to try to take down this Baron.
Without that Ziggs, they lose a lot of the opportunity to just poke them down and have that burst, that coordinated burst to get the Baron to a low enough point for the Nunu to steal that one away. But they still have a Nunu, and you can see what happens. NSL, they need to back away. But they still have the waves crashing in towards that bottom side. They set up that wave earlier on, and now it's starting to pay off. And again, that top lane's constantly being shoved in, so they need to be aware of that. KALLYX is in a bit of a tough spot because there's not much they can do. They can't step too far forward. They're just going to walk backwards continuously, back towards their base, clear out the waves, walk towards the Baron, and back to their base. Whereas NSL, they get a lot more free space to roam around and pick up all the gold potentially available on the map.
I'm looking at Gambling X once again on that Galio. And then I'm like, okay, flashback, but it is going to be NS10. The Baron lane is about these two teams having a 1v1, but NSL, they're bringing more people, but Akshan, oh my goodness, coming in from afar, forced to use the ultimate. It is going to be the Pantheon to jump back into safety, but back into the enemy's base as well. Laws jumps all the way in, tried to stun NS19, but taking so much damage, so much survivability on this Baron lane in front of the side of KALLYX, and NSL is like, you know what? You can do whatever you want right here, but I'm just trying to secure even more space because Laos X is the one that got caught out in the open.
They actually get the Ari here. This could be big.
This could be very big as well. Speaking about big, all the big ultimates used by the KALLYX would not be able to secure anything as well. These are very crucial for for KALLYX to try to deter NSL away from all these objectives like the Baron and even the mid lane. Now NSL tried to hard shove the mid lane. Looking at death timers right now, Loss coming in back to the game around 30 seconds right now. KALLYX forced to play defense mode.
There's no wave mid, but there's a wave bound. They try and crash that one in quickly, but I don't think they get much more done apart from that. NS19 just pops the ultimate just for good measure. Get a bit more down. Just chunk them out where you can. Bring in the waves. That top lane is shoving in. This is a good moment for them. Loss is going to spawn in about 10 seconds, and with that ultimate, they actually might have to back off because that's the initiation that they want as they try and chunk out these turrets.
Yeah, NSL, they know, they identify that Laws is not in. They try to push down the bottom lane, but unfortunately, Laws has come back from the graveyard right in here. Big bombs coming in, try to deter NSL away from them. These damage has been very crucial. KALLYX goes, try to look some pick off with the charm, but will not be able to do anything with the Spirit Rush. But now KALLYX finally will be able to push NSL back to the river. What a tug of war happening from the side of both these two teams. But speaking of this, the Nami Ultimate misses all this as well, and NSL managed to push KALLYX all the way back to the base once again.
Charm misses, that's Flash gone, that's initiation tool that the Ari isn't going to get back for a while. This gives them a chance to push this turret here, perhaps. That topple coming from Renekton, that's the flank, but he has to back away because there's too many there. This team is not ready to back him up.
Yeah, his team is not ready to back him up, and if in fact NS17 forced to go back to pick up his per package at the same time, once again the map is reset all the way back into like what happened around 5 minutes ago. Both these two teams looking healthy. The gold lead doesn't really matter anymore. It's all about the positioning. It's all about who makes the first mistakes. KALLYX is just waiting for NSL to make mistakes, hoping that NS10, just overextend just a little bit more, or even goes to land down these charm. But take a look. NSL is just constantly shoving KALLYX back into their base.
Red team lost a turret.
Now this gives NSL the chance to go towards the Baron. This might be finally the opportunity they want to go for, the chance to finally finish this one off. No more half baked, half done. To get to go in towards this. The Nunu very far away. They have to stretch to take this one down quickly. It's down to 6,000. They might have to back away to get the bubble back on the Nunu. Time's being bought. The dash in from the outside, dodges away from the charm. The re-engage of Kelly.
We re-engage with Kelly once again. NS10. You can see Laws jumping all the way in, but there's won't be able to connect anyone. NSL will be able to secure the Baron buff as well, and NS19 doing the God's work as well. But it is going to be blue lives getting chunking all the way down. But no matter, even though you go golden, SG KALLYX will not be able to survive to defend from this. In fact, giving NSL the full team-wide and the prime opportunity to march down this core after for 5 minutes of just back and forth tug of war.
They bring us the full distance, 30 minutes, the big 3-0, but they will do it. They will take down KALLYX, NSL 2-1 in this series, and they pick up this win.
Wow, what a game, what a roller coaster moment where, okay, I look down. I admittedly look down on the table once again, but NSL and Space Gamer KALLYX, GG over to both these two teams. So disciplined. NSLR and Space Gamer KALLYX as well. They know how to play with the composition. Just the mere threat of having all these ultimates just deters NSL away from these key objectives. But man, what a series, Grandon! What a series!
Yeah, what a series, bringing us the full way. I think NS13 kind of saved herself at the end there with the Jace performance this time around, being able to do so much more. We will forget what happened in game 2, because at the end of it all, they won this one 2-1. So a very good showing overall. I really like what NSL did. I think there was some good moments from KALLYX, but I think the composition that NSL just seemed more cohesive, more coherent, and had a clearer idea of what needed to be done. Whereas KALLYX was a little bit more kind of up for interpretation. There were multiple identities in the team, so it was a little bit difficult to figure out what they needed to execute. But there were some moments that were absolutely amazing, and I loved watching them play those ones out. But it seemed by the time we hit that end game, it just seemed easier for NSL to execute.
Yeah, and you mentioned about KALLYX, there's no real identity. It's like a Swiss Army knife. You can't call a Swiss Army knife a knife, right? There's a lot of screws, there's a lot of scissors in there. There's like a sauce for some of them that I've actually bought before. But NSL, they're just bringing in all the damage. They're just going in with all that hurt, and KALLYX is just unable to withstand all the damage, even though they built slightly tankier. But in the end of the day, NSL, you saw how many times that they attempted that Baron, and they chunked it out half health for like God knows, like a few seconds, and then they backed off. You can imagine that the amount of damage they could do in that short little time, not only just to the Baron, right, but to the members of KALLYX. They cannot hold the damage coming out from NSL. So really mad respect for both these two teams and giving us a wonderful series. In fact, this is the first series of the day for day number 1 already, and we're already into a banger of a series.
Yeah, a great showing from both these two teams, and congratulations over to NSL, who are going to be able to take out this one. That being said, we're going to go into a quick little break before we jump into our next series of the day. It's been a good one. I'm looking forward to more stuff that we see. We'll see you guys in a little bit.